Yeah, it feels like that when we come into spirituality, there's nothing that happens necessarily that stops the mechanism of storing emotion. There's nothing in the practices that necessarily target that. So basically, when you get into spirituality, you can almost assume that you're continuing to store emotions.
Yeah.
Especially in first or second dimension, you should just assume that, because if you're wrong, that's fine. You don't have a problem. You know what I mean? But if you're right, you're focused on the right issue. So if everybody can just hear this, like, coming in from childhood, your system was already bearing emotions unconsciously. You weren't doing it. It was doing it before you even knew it. It's already doing it unconsciously and involuntarily without you knowing. So when you come into practice, it's all just going to keep doing that without you knowing, unless you have a practice that gets to it early.
Yeah. Yeah, hit me this term, storing emotions. We are storing emotions. That we don't speak about it. It's in psychotherapy. We don't speak about it. They don't speak about it. Storing emotions, which it starts to become a like really unpleasant source of suffering that creates mental spinning and emotional activation and physical contraction. So storing emotions.
Or even disease and mental health issue. It can even manifest that far, as we know. It's a big source of needs to be focused on. That's ridiculous, in my view.
Yeah.
That in therapy and spirituality, we're not focusing on one of the major sources of suffering. That's a big issue.
Yeah. So can you speak a little bit about this? I mean, I guess it's another term for suppressing or repressing, but I like this, storing emotions. So speak about it, because I guess emotions are theoretically meant to be impermanent and coming and going, like the thoughts and the sounds. But we
Well,
mess with this.
if energy isn't created or destroyed, then when I'm angry as a child, it doesn't just go away because I don't want to feel it. It's stored somewhere in the system. We don't really understand all of that yet through science, and I have to admit ignorance. I mean, we don't really know that mechanism exactly, but science is studying it to know that it does happen. They just don't know exactly how it happens. So it's already happening for all of us. I think that's the reason that we don't catch it, is because it's all unconscious. So we're all just very unconscious, basically, and it's all just happening. Even in the disciplines, it's happening in spirituality and therapy, and the practitioners and teachers aren't catching it, apparently. I didn't catch it for a long time. It's easy to miss. So it's going on without us knowing. That's the thing you have to remember. It's just going on right now if it's happening. Like while you're watching this, it's happening right now.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about this, but like some forms of spirituality, and I think many of them, at least the ones I tried, the mechanism of storing emotions for other reasons was still in place. So I started to push down emotions and get rid of them, snuff them away with presence. Now for other reasons, not because of some child reason, but for some spiritual gain reason. Yeah. So you are helping people in this method to discover this. How do we discover this? How can we verify this?
Well,
somebody coming to the path,
well, through somatic testing, I think, is the way. So if you go to the somatic testing video that I did on YouTube and just take yourself through it, you'll probably find, for example, if you repress hurt or sadness, that when I take you to a certain trigger or a shadow or pain or something, the conditioning around that repression gets activated. It shows you that it's involved in all areas. So you want to learn it first. That's actually, because that's part of the context. If you don't see the connection, you won't even be interested in doing KI, I don't think. But in the beginning, if you see, for example, if I bring somebody up and I'm a hurt repressor and I just do a boomerang, if there's a trigger, I have my identity there. Well, that identity got formed in childhood because I couldn't open to the hurt. You see, I may not remember that, but you will discover it through KI. So basically, just go back to your childhood, people, slow things down, rest and be first. It's all presence-based. But you might activate the deficiency story with your childhood people first, your mom and dad, to make the connection that whatever sense of lack or deficiency that you feel here is coming from something that happened earlier. So let's say I get a story I'm not supported by you. That's my story. And it could be that the person's not supporting me, but this could be a lifelong thing, like you said, that I've always felt about myself. So I
Mhm.
go back to the VIPs in childhood and I say, I'm fully supported. And so my body keeps the score. So it's going to let me know, no
Mhm.
matter, doesn't matter what the mind says, the body will tell me whether I believe that. So if I say, I'm fully supported, the memory of that, it's like, no,
Mhm.
no. And so there I have that with mom and dad. If I know I repress hurt and I say, I'm not hurt by them, I'm probably going to get the same activation right there because the hurt and the deficiency story came together. I
Mhm.
couldn't express hurt. I had to identify with that. So it's accessible right there. If I
Mhm.
already have that I'm not supported, there's the repressed hurt right there with it.
Mhm.
So our one way that people can start linking it up is to do a boomerang around all your present suffering, discover that deficiency story, and
Mhm.
then go back to process that repression
Yeah.
from the past and learn how to do that. That's the inside out path to the extent you can link it up. All your present suffering, that's another thing from science. Our present suffering is one part past. So
Mhm.
we're seeing the present suffering, we're awake to it, but we're not being asleep to the past part. And
Yeah.
we're going back to it to process that with each of those triggers or
Yeah.
whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like follow the scent of the suffering, find out the limiting identity, painful identity, loosen up there, look at it, make it conscious, and then go a whole other trip now following the scent or the scent of the money or of the energy, the fuel, and find the trauma or the repression that
Yeah.
fuels the identity.
Can I say something else too, just to help people with this? Is a different understanding has to come because if you can, we've talked about this before. You didn't form this identity on your own, right? Whatever it is, you
Mhm.
formed it in relationship with others. There's no way. How can a person feel not good enough compared to what? In what context? See, it's learned. So there's no such thing as a person who's not good enough. You learn that through relational dynamics. So
Mhm.
you basically learned it from childhood. So when you see the deficiency story up, just think to yourself, that doesn't happen in a vacuum for no reason. That's there for a reason. Think
Mhm.
of it that way. And then the reason is because you can't open to hurt or sadness. And then it takes you back to that. It's one
Yeah.
way of thinking of it.
Yeah.